The clinking of the store's automatic doors mingled with the constant hum of air conditioning and ambient music. I stood there, motionless, feeling the weight of the day crush me, as if every step of the past had followed me to that moment. My hands were in the pockets of my worn coat, and for a moment I was just another gray face among the rows of gleaming products. But then he appeared. A boy, maybe in his early 20s, with messy hair and a mischievous smile, who seemed always on the lookout for someone to mock. He didn't say anything right away. He just looked at me with that mixture of contempt and youthful curiosity that only those who have never faced anything real can express. The tension began to rise almost imperceptibly. I felt a shiver run down my spine, an involuntary memory of a sunny day. But with bombs falling around me, men falling beside me, screams piercing the air. I tried to ignore the boy, to continue on my way. But he seemed to notice every hesitation, every small sign of vulnerability my body betrayed. The provocative glint in his eyes was a sharp knife, pointed straight at my pride. And I felt the heavy air in the store, as if time had slowed down, making every detail more vivid, more intolerable. He pointed to my worn coat, to the badge I still carried tucked into my inside pocket, the one almost no one would notice, but which, to me, meant more than any medal, any public accolade. "Hey, Grandpa. Is that coat older than you?" he said with a low chuckle, laced with derision. A murmur began to form behind him, other customers noticing the silent clash, some curious, others merely indifferent. Yet, as I watched the provocative glint in his eyes, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. The memory of the battlefield, when fear and adrenaline mingled, making every decision crucial. My body reacted before my mind. An involuntary tightening of my fists, the tension in my shoulders burned by memories of cold nights, of invisible enemies, of silences that screamed louder than any bomb. I could have reacted explosively, but discipline, the one that had kept me alive through years of war, imposed calm on me. The boy continued, now gesturing, mocking, attracting the attention of other customers. I could hear the muffled laughter of someone behind him, perhaps encouraging, perhaps just out of malice. My heart raced, not out of fear, but from the memory that disrespect is nothing new to those who have faced the unimaginable. The memories of fallen comrades, of difficult orders, of life or death decisions, all of this shaped me to not only resist, but to observe, learn, and wait for the right moment to act. And in that instant, something inside me awakened. The line between patience and indignation began to thin. The air seemed thicker, the sounds of the shop more distant, as if I were back in the trenches, every movement charged with meaning, every gesture of the boy, a silent provocation that demanded a response, not blind rage, but silent inevitable justice. I felt my eyes scan the shop floor, the window reflecting my own aged image, scarred, but still firm, as he continued to laugh, unaware of who was truly in front of him. And it was in that instant, in that silence charged with expectation, that I realized that this shop, this moment, would be more than a simple interaction. It would be a test, not of physical strength, but of history, of experience, of honor. And what was about to happen would change not only the perception of that boy, but of everyone around him, transforming laughter into silence, mockery into recognition, and contempt into respect. My name bears marks no one else can see. I'm not just an old man in a worn coat. I'm a survivor, a veteran who walked through fields many only know from stories or movies. Before I arrived at this store, before I became just another gray face among the shelves and aisles, my life had a constant rhythm, intensity, and danger. I remember the mornings before sunrise, the cold mist covering the harsh terrain, as we soldiers prepared to face what no one could have foreseen. Every step I took in those distant lands was etched into my skin and my mind, and every decision carried the weight of the life of someone who trusted me. The memories are not limited to the battlefield. I also carry the echo of the friends I lost, those who gave everything without expecting anything in return. I rarely think of those faces without feeling the lump in my throat, the emptiness that war leaves in my soul. They were more than companions, they were brothers, part of a fraternity forged by the fires of war. I remember moments of absolute silence, when the world seemed suspended, and only the sound of wind and weapons breaking the stillness reminded me that we were alive, but only by a thread. After years of service, bearing medals and scars, some visible, many invisible, civilian life brought me another battle: invisibility. Because although the world celebrated our achievements on special dates and formal ceremonies, most days we were merely shadows of the past. No one saw the sleepless days, the memories that returned without warning, the involuntary gestures that betrayed who we truly were. And today, in that store, I felt that contrast again. The weight of everything I'd experienced faced with the indifference or contempt of someone who never understood what it means to fight for life and honor. When I entered the store, I wasn't there for conflict. I simply wanted to buy something simple, to keep my life going despite the past that insists on following me. But the experience of war taught me to always be alert, to spot signs before they become problems. And there was something in that young man's gaze that activated every fiber of my memory, every reflex learned through years of discipline. His disrespect wasn't just for the elderly man I had become. It was a silent affront to what I represented, what I defended, what I still hold dear within me. I began to observe every detail. The boy's posture, the suppressed laughter of some customers, the heavy air that seemed to envelop us all. I could sense the fear, curiosity, and judgment in his every gesture. It was fascinating, and at the same time painful, to note how someone so young could completely ignore the value of experiences that took decades to acquire. War teaches us to perceive nuances that most people don't even notice. A gesture, a look, a hesitation can speak louder than 1,000 words. And in that moment, every inch of the store seemed charged with meaning. Every glance I directed at him like a silent reminder of everything I'd experienced. I still carry the sound of the explosions, the screams, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I remember the sleepless nights, the plans that needed to be executed with surgical precision to avoid casualties. I remember the smell of earth, the metal, the smoke, and the sense of responsibility that weighed more heavily than any equipment. And now, facing the contempt of a young man who didn't even know the meaning of these experiences, I felt that all this past was about to become present, to manifest itself in a way he would never forget. I could have simply ignored it, gone unnoticed, and continued my routine. But something inside me, perhaps the instinct for self-respect, perhaps the discipline instilled by war, began to whisper that the moment to demonstrate who I was had arrived. It wasn't out of anger, it wasn't ego, it was justice, a silent truth that needed to be revealed. Each scar, each medal, wasn't just a symbol of combat. It was proof that life is hard, that respect isn't given, and that some learn their lessons the hard way. I was about to show that, though aged and scarred, I wasn't diminished. That my story, my courage, my past, had value, not just to me, but to anyone who dared to belittle what they didn't understand. And so, I took a deep breath, feeling each memory of the past prepare me for what was to come, knowing that this unexpected confrontation in that fluorescent-lit hallway would be more than a simple exchange of words. It would be a silent testament to everything I'd experienced, and perhaps a reminder to everyone present that respect and honor are non-negotiable. The air in the store seemed heavier by the second, charged with silent tension. The boy remained standing near me, his eyes shining with a mixture of contempt and curiosity, as if I were merely an object of entertainment for him. A group of customers gathered discreetly, watching the interaction with interest, some trying to hide their laughter, others simply attentive, intrigued by the silent clash unfolding between us. I felt my adrenaline surge, not from fear, that hadn't affected me in a long time, but from the knowledge that this situation, however mundane, would become a test of patience and dignity. The boy stepped forward, gently pushing my shoulder. "Hey, Grandpa, are you going to tell me your war stories, or are you just going to stand there, all tough?" He laughed, and the laughter echoed through the hallway, reminding my ears of the warning shouts on the battlefield, only this time replaced by a heavy silence from the surrounding customers. I felt a mixture of suppressed fury and quiet sadness. Fury because the disrespect was direct and cruel, sadness because I realized my understanding of sacrifice and courage was fading, replaced by superficial mockery. The confrontation was more than verbal. His every gesture, every laugh, every provocative move was a silent provocation of my experience, of the value of years lived amidst real danger. I began to observe my surroundings, seeing the looks of judgment, of expectation, and realized that everyone was awaiting my reaction. Some perhaps waiting for me to explode, others simply curious to see how far this confrontation would go. I could feel time dragging, each second increasing the tension, each heavy breath marked by an almost palpable silence. And then came the moment that awakened my instinct for discipline and self-control. The boy decided to imitate my steps, mocking the way I moved, the posture that life and the weight of years had imposed on me. He laughed loudly now, attracting the attention of even more customers, making the situation public and impossible to ignore. My heart was pounding, not out of fear, but out of the knowledge that I needed to act correctly. Any hasty reaction could turn the moment into a pointless conflict. Every gesture needed to be calculated, firm, yet charged with meaning. As he continued, my mind wandered through memories of command and strategy, remembering how, even in high-stakes situations, every action was measured, every response planned. I remembered nights when simple decisions saved lives or caused irreparable losses. All of this merged with the current tension, and I realized that the clash there was symbolic. It wasn't just about me and the boy, but about an entire generation that had forgotten the importance of honor and respect. The boy, noticing my silence, became even more aggressive in his provocations. He began repeating the harshest words, mocking the military past he didn't understand. Do you think anyone cares about those old medals? That those stories are worth anything today? He looked around at the group of customers, seeking validation, and some began to laugh, others just watched tensely. I felt the weight of public humiliation, but also the clarity that I needed to transform that moment into something that would change the perception of everyone present. That's when I realized the crucial point. The situation demanded something other than physical force, shouting, or threats. It demanded truth, exposing what my story truly meant. The initial conflict wasn't just the boy's mockery, it was the collective ignorance of courage, sacrifice, and real experience. And in that instant, a clear decision formed within me. I would show who I was, but in a way that no one could dispute, so that everyone would recognize, even if only for a moment, the value of my life and everything I had endured. Time seemed to stretch as I took a deep breath, feeling each memory of the war reinforce my conviction. Each passing second heightened the public's anticipation and the risk of humiliation, but it also solidified my resolve. I knew I couldn't back down. I had to transform that conflict into a demonstration of truth and honor, a silent lesson that would echo far beyond the store's aisles. And so, as the boy continued his provocation, I felt that the turning point was about to come. Something that would change not only his perception, but that of everyone who was there witnessing it, ready to learn, finally, the weight of a past that he would never understand for himself. The boy couldn't contain himself any longer. The mockery intensified, now accompanied by exaggerated gestures and loud laughter, which reverberated through the store's aisles. It was impossible to ignore him. His every word seemed amplified, every gesture designed to humiliate me in front of the silently watching customers. I felt the weight of everyone's gaze on me, but also the silent anticipation. Some wanted me to react with anger. Others simply waited for the scene to unfold. My chest tightened, not out of fear, but from that familiar feeling of injustice, the one that gnaws at me, slow and persistent, one I've known on many battlefields. He pointed to my worn coat, to the discreet badge I carried, and mocked. "Look at this. What are old medals for? Tell a story, Grandpa. Make us laugh." The words cut like invisible blades, because in that moment, war wasn't far away. It was there, reflected in the mocking glances, in the public scorn, in the feeling that every effort, every sacrifice could be reduced to a joke. The customers began to murmur among themselves, some laughing, others just watching, fueling the silent humiliation that permeated the air. As he laughed, I noticed a curious phenomenon: how public contempt amplifies discomfort. I could simply ignore it, go unnoticed, but his presence in front of everyone transformed the moment into a test not only of patience, but of dignity. My every gesture seemed slow, heavy, as if under the lens of an invisible camera. Each movement measured but charged with tension. He laughed louder, encouraged by the attention, and I felt that familiar weight again. Being judged by those who had never understood my story simply because of my appearance or age. The boy advanced, now imitating my steps, my facial expressions, mocking the way I leaned lightly on the stick. "Look at that, all tough, all important. You think we're fools, do you? Are you going to tell me you fought in wars or just collect old medals?" The words echoed in the store, and the silence that followed was almost as painful as the mockery. I felt the humiliation reverberate within me, awakening memories of days when my words and actions were questioned by leaders who didn't understand, allies who didn't believe, or even civilians who despised the effort that cost blood and lives. The audience's gaze was divided. Some maintained silent curiosity, others laughed with morbid pleasure, and still others seemed to sense, however subtly, the injustice unfolding. I could feel every breath, every expectation, every judgment hovering over me, like a tense fog. But even at the height of humiliation, a part of me remained calm, trained, aware that true strength lies not in retaliating with violence or harsh words, but in transforming contempt into an opportunity to reveal the truth. The boy continued, now surrounding me almost symbolically, trying to monopolize the space and attract attention, laughing exaggeratedly, mocking my age, the marks on my face, the way I breathed. I felt that knot in my chest again, but also something deeper, the memory of brothers in arms, men who died defending ideals, and people who would never know our history. His disrespect, though public and cruel, did not diminish the value of everything I had experienced. On the contrary, it reinforced the need to show that the past has weight and meaning, even when ignored by younger people. And it was at that moment that I realized that humiliation was only the surface layer of the conflict. The public contempt wasn't just about me. It was about the perception of worth, about the forgetting of experiences that shape character, courage, and honor. The boys' laughter, the looks of the customers, the tension in the air, all of this transformed into a symbolic scenario. Society testing my limits, my patience, my ability to transform disrespect into a lesson. I took a deep breath, feeling every memory of the war, every memory of those who fell, every difficult decision that had brought me there. The humiliation was before me, tangible, almost palpable, but I knew it would only be a prelude to something greater. Something that would change everyone's perception, transforming mockery into respect, disdain into admiration. And in that instant, I realized that the turning point was near. Something no one expected, but which would irrefutably reveal the weight of a past that cannot be ignored. The boy was still laughing confidently, convinced he had belittled me in front of everyone. But then something unexpected happened. The store manager, a man with a firm posture and a watchful gaze, approached silently. He didn't intervene immediately, simply observing the situation with calculated patience, like someone who knows the weight of every word and gesture. There was something in his expression that gave me a spark of hope. He knew this situation required a response that went beyond the obvious, something that would transform humiliation into justice. The boy continued to mock, gesticulate, drawing everyone's attention. Then the manager approached, stopping beside me. In a calm but authoritative voice, he said, "Sir, could you come with me for a moment? We need to talk." The simplicity of the sentence had an immediate effect. The boy stopped, confused, looking at him as if he didn't understand what was about to happen. The silence in the store grew, every customer sensing that something different was about to unfold, that the dynamics of the confrontation would change irreversibly. The manager led me to a small space next to the cashier, and with a discreet gesture began to reveal details that no one there knew. He briefly recounted my military history, my service on dangerous missions, the medals and recognitions earned in extreme situations, the sacrifices made, and the friends lost. Each word carried weight. Each sentence added meaning to what until then had been merely a mocking scene. The boy, who minutes before had been laughing and gesturing, stood still, unable to process the information quickly. The laughter faded from his face, replaced by disbelief and a hint of embarrassment that was beginning to emerge. As the manager spoke, I noticed the shift in the atmosphere. The customers' expressions also changed, from curiosity and amusement. They shifted to silent admiration, restrained respect, and in some cases, genuine surprise. The turnaround wasn't just for me. It was for everyone present, witnessing the transformation in perception of a young man who disregarded the experience of others. The manager's words served as a bridge, connecting the story of the military past to the present situation, showing that life and sacrifice have value, even when ignored or mocked. The boy tried to respond, but words failed him. He stifled his laughter, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and embarrassment, unable to find the mockery that had previously flowed so naturally. It was as if the revelation had shattered the facade of confidence he had carried, leaving him vulnerable to something he could never fully understand. The silence stretched on, heavy and charged with meaning, before the manager added, "This man is not here to be ridiculed. He faced dangers none of us could imagine and deserves our respect." The turnaround was complete when I noticed the effect on the boy. Not just the silence, but the look of recognition, albeit timid, emerging for the first time. He began to realize that mockery does not erase history, that disrespect does not alter the value of a life marked by courage, and that some episodes in our existence require silent reverence, not laughter. The surrounding audience, which until then had merely observed, began to absorb the implicit lesson, understanding, even if superficially, that real experience has weight and meaning. It was a symbolic and transformative moment. The humiliation was reversed not by direct confrontation, but by the revelation of a truth no one could dispute. The military past, fraught with sacrifice, courage, and loss, became the key to silent justice, to immediate recognition, and to the shifting of power in that situation. Every gesture, every word, every glance around me began to align with the narrative of honor and respect that finally prevailed, disarming the mockery and replacing contempt with admiration. Deep down, I felt a quiet satisfaction, not in the victory over the boy, but in the recognition of what had always been true, that courage and experience accumulated over years cannot be denied, and that the truth, when revealed, transforms people's perceptions definitively. The boy remained there, motionless, learning, albeit belatedly, a lesson that I will carry with me. Some stories cannot be ignored, and certain lives, no matter their age, always deserve respect. The silence that followed the manager's revelation was almost tangible, heavy as a veil that covered the entire store. The boy, who minutes before had been laughing and mocking everything, now remained motionless, eyes wide, unable to process the magnitude of what he had heard. Every word describing my military past seemed to echo in every corner of the space, reverberating in looks that finally understood, even if superficially, the weight of what I had faced. The mockery had been replaced by silent respect, an acknowledgement that needed no applause, only the tacit validation of those who know that life is not measured solely by the present, but by what someone has faced and survived. The boy took a deep breath, looking away for a moment, and I could see a mixture of shame and admiration emerging, as if he were beginning to understand, even if only partially, the scale of my experiences. It wasn't just about me. It was about all those who have faced extreme situations and been underestimated or ignored. He had learned in the most direct way possible that some stories demand immediate respect, regardless of age or appearance. As he remained silent, some customers began to discreetly approach him to express words of recognition, simple greetings, respectful glances, or small gestures that, though subtle, carried emotional weight. An older man nodded, saying, "Thank you for what you did, sir. Not everyone faces what you faced." Others murmured words of admiration, and I felt a wave of relief mixed with quiet pride, an acknowledgement that didn't need to be proclaimed loudly but was deeply felt. The manager, maintaining his firm stance, added, "We can't always see what someone has been through, but respect is something that must be granted before any hasty judgment. This man has proven so much more than any words or gestures could measure." His statement had an immediate effect, transforming the atmosphere. The teenager finally approached, hesitantly, extending his hand shakily, a timid gesture of apology and recognition. I squeezed her firmly, conveying not anger but understanding. It was a symbolic moment. Justice came not from confrontation, but from the truth revealed, from the history that could not be ignored. I felt the tension dissipate, replaced by a strange sense of lightness. The weight of humiliation, which had previously pressed down on me like heavy armor, now transformed into recognition, as if past and present were finally in balance. The boy had learned, and so had those watching. Every gesture, every word exchanged, carried the symbolism that truth and experience cannot be underestimated or ridiculed. As I walked slowly down the aisle of the store, I realized that this moment had altered something deeper than just the boy's perception. The very energy of the space felt different. The gazes were now more attentive, respectful. The feeling was almost surreal. What had begun as mockery and contempt had been transformed into a silent lesson in honor, dignity, and recognition. I didn't need applause or formal praise. The simple acknowledgement of the truth was enough, and that was more valuable than any medal or award. Justice, in that moment, was not symbolic or formal, but real and tangible. The revelation of the military past, the calm and precise intervention of the manager, and the shift in perception of the boy and those present had created a new dynamic. It was a reminder that respect and recognition should not be conditional, that some experiences demand immediate consideration, and that true authority comes not from physical power or harsh words, but from lived truth, from the real story that shapes character, courage, and honor. In the end, I felt a mixture of relief and quiet satisfaction. The boy remained silent, learning, and I realized that justice didn't need to be explicit. It resided in the impact that truth exerts, in the recognition that cannot be ignored, in the transformation of humiliation into respect, contempt into admiration, mockery into reverence. And in that moment, I understood that every battle I had faced, every sacrifice and every loss had led to this moment of silent, profound, and lasting justice. As silence and respect filled the shop, I felt something I hadn't felt so intensely in a long time. The depth of my own memories. It wasn't just the recognition of the boy or the customers, but a moment when all the experiences that had shaped me came flooding back, clear and almost painful. I remembered comrades who never returned, faces that faded from the world but remained vivid in my memory, and moments of courage and fear that shaped not only my survival, but my understanding of humanity and sacrifice. I could almost feel the hot sand beneath my feet again. The metallic smell of blood mixed with smoke. The heat of the sun burning my skin as I listened to orders that carried life or death in every word. Each memory seemed to ignite a flame within me, reminding me that even in that seemingly mundane moment, I was connected to everything I'd experienced. The humiliation, the mockery, and now the recognition weren't just isolated events. They were echoes of what it means to be tested, to be challenged, and above all to be seen for the truth of who you truly are. As the boy remained silent, looking at me with a mixture of embarrassment and respect, I felt a wave of empathy. He didn't understand my story, not yet, but he was beginning to realize that certain experiences cannot be diminished by laughter or superficial glances. I remembered the fragility of youth, the ignorance that often accompanies a lack of experience, and I realized that the connection we were forming in that moment was symbolic. A bridge between generations, between experiences, between what has been lived and what still needs to be learned. I closed my eyes for a moment and relived the endless nights of planning, the moments of intense fear, the whispers in the dark as we awaited orders that could change everything. Every loss, every sacrifice, every act of courage was with me, and now it manifested itself in a different way. Through the silent recognition of those who had not lived through the war, but were witnessing the fruits of its toll on those who survived. I felt my heart beat slower, no longer from the tension or the disrespect, but from the feeling that my story was finally finding an echo, however small, in the world around me. As I watched the boy, I realized he was beginning to internalize something. The weight of respect, the importance of recognizing the value of the past, and the need to learn from it. It wasn't just about me, about the veteran in the store. It was about collective memory, about conveying that courage, sacrifice, and experience are not just symbols or medals, but living lessons that shape character and conscience. And in that moment, I felt something inside me calm, as if every painful memory was being validated, acknowledged, and understood, however minimally, by those around me. The emotional connection wasn't just with the boy, nor with the customers, nor with the manager. It was with all the moments that shaped me, with all the struggles I faced, with all those who lost their way and whose lives continue to echo within me. Every gesture of silent respect, every attentive look, every small reaction that reflected understanding was a bridge between my past and the present. It was a reminder that true connection doesn't depend on grandiose words, but on the profound recognition of shared experience and humanity. I took a deep breath, feeling the memory of my fallen comrades and the reality of my own survival blend with the presence of the present moment. That young man who minutes before had mocked me now represented a chance to convey something greater, something symbolic. That courage, dignity, and honor are not lost with time, that every lived experience has value, and that true connection is born from understanding what it means to face challenges that go beyond the superficial understanding of the observer. It was a brief but intense moment, a moment in which past and present intertwined, creating a narrative of learning, empathy, and recognition. And even though I know that life often doesn't offer second chances, I felt that there, in that corridor illuminated by the store's artificial light, something essential had been conveyed. That each individual's experience, history, and humanity deserve respect, and that true emotional connection manifests when this truth is finally perceived, even if in a silent and subtle way. The mood in the store had changed, but tension still hung in the air. The boy stood there, visibly disconcerted, while a few customers murmured among themselves, absorbing the turn of events. But the climax hadn't yet arrived. I could feel a final wave of resistance coming from him, that spark of youthful arrogance that hadn't yet completely died down. It was as if he were on the verge of testing his limits, trying to gauge whether my patience would finally run out. Suddenly, he took a step forward, almost instinctively, as if trying to regain control of the situation. Okay, but so what? That doesn't change anything. His voice trembled, trying to sound firm, but betraying a mixture of nervousness and defiance. The customers fell silent, sensing something was about to happen, something that would require a decisive response. Every muscle in my body reacted automatically. It wasn't just the memory of war that guided me, but the discipline that shaped me to face critical moments with strategy, calm, and precision. I felt my heart race, not out of fear, but out of the knowledge that this was the climax of the test. The tension was almost palpable. Every glance toward me conveyed anticipation and curiosity. I knew one misstep could undermine everything we had achieved so far. But war had taught me something fundamental. In moments of crisis, control is more powerful than force, and truth is more lethal than any rash gesture. The boy continued, trying to resume his mockery. But something in his posture had changed. He hesitated, as if realizing for the first time that this was not just a joke. Every word that came out of his mouth was charged with insecurity. And I realized that the tension was now a silent interplay between youthful arrogance and life experience. I felt the weight of decades of training and battles preparing me for the perfect response. Not aggressive but definitive, revealing, capable of transforming the perception of everyone in the store. At that moment I took a deep breath and positioned myself so I faced the boy directly, looking him in the eye with firmness and serenity. Every memory from the past flashed through my mind. The adrenaline of dangerous missions, the responsibility of commanding men, the pain of losing friends. Each memory fueled my presence in that moment. And then, with a firm voice, I began to recount a fragment of what I had experienced, not to boast, but to make ignorance impossible. I spoke of cold nights in enemy territory, of decisions that determined life or death, of the weight of responsibility and the courage required. The seconds stretched by. The boy couldn't interrupt, his posture sagging, each word I spoke taking up space and commanding respect. He realized finally that bravery, experience, and sacrifice are not mere appearances that can be ignored. The surrounding audience fell into absolute silence, absorbing every detail, every nuance, every emotion conveyed by my narrative. It was a symbolic and emotional climax, a clash of generations and experiences, where past and present met to teach a lesson that no laughter or mockery could erase. As I spoke, I felt something unexpected, a wave of empathy rising not only from the boy, but from everyone around. The tension reached its peak, not as a physical threat, but as the height of emotional impact. Every glance fixed on me, every held breath, every hesitation from the young man, all contributed to the intensity of the moment. It was the culmination of everything. Humiliation transformed into respect, disdain transformed into admiration, mockery transformed into a silent understanding of the strength that comes from real experience and sacrifice. The climax reached its peak when I realized the lesson was sinking in. The boy finally bowed his head, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement, silent, shy, but genuine. Murmurs of approval began to rise among the customers. The air shifted, becoming lighter, charged with respect and reflection. That peak of tension transformed into something almost palpable. The weight of the past, the strength of experience, and the validity of courage had triumphed, and symbolic justice was now fully manifested. Even as the adrenaline began to fade, I sensed that moment would leave a permanent mark, not only on the boy's memory but on my own consciousness. The heightened tension had served to cement everything. The respect earned, the lesson imparted, and the connection between past and present. I knew that, from then on, any attempt at disdain or disrespect would be filtered through that moment, where truth and courage prevailed over mockery and ignorance. The silence that followed the climax was heavy but no longer threatening, now charged with respect and reflection. The boy stood there, his eyes downcast, visibly processing every word I had shared, every memory revealed. The humiliation had vanished, replaced by a silent understanding of what it means to carry experiences that cannot be compared or reduced to laughter or derision. The entire store seemed to breathe with me, absorbing the transformation of that moment, witnessing how the truth of the past can alter the perception of the present. As I walked slowly down the aisle, I felt the impact of everything that had happened. Every gesture, every word, every look I received now carried meaning. It wasn't just a victory over the young man's mockery. It was the consolidation of a larger narrative, a reminder that lived experiences, sacrifices, and courage do not disappear, even when ignored or underestimated. The most profound consequence of that episode was the silent change in the air. A tacit respect that didn't need to be verbalized, but that everyone could feel. The boy approached hesitantly, his words low, almost whispered. "Sorry. I didn't know." It wasn't just an apology. It was an acknowledgement of the truth he was finally realizing. I shook his hand firmly, conveying not anger but understanding and empathy. It was a symbolic moment. The young man, who had begun by mocking me, had now learned a silent lesson about honor, experience, and respect. This immediate transformation was perhaps the most significant consequence of all, because it showed that the impact of our lives, even in small everyday encounters, can teach us something profound if approached truthfully and firmly. The customers who witnessed the scene began murmuring words of recognition, discreet greetings, and nods. The atmosphere changed completely. From a scene charged with tension and mockery, it shifted to one of quiet respect, reflection, and admiration. I felt a strange sense of relief but also of satisfaction, not out of pride or vanity, but out of the certainty that truth and respect had prevailed and that the lesson had somehow been absorbed by everyone there. As I left the store, I took a deep breath and felt the weight of the experience melt into a light, almost ethereal memory. The humiliation, tension, and ridicule had been dissolved by recognition and quiet justice, and I could walk more lightly, knowing that the truth about my life and my experiences had finally been realized. The most important consequence was not only the respect gained in that moment, but the reaffirmation that courage and sacrifice have value, and that people's perceptions can change when confronted with the truth honestly and directly. On the way out, I thought about the friends I'd lost, the battles I'd faced, and the lessons I'd learned, each memory intertwined with the present, reinforcing that my story isn't just mine. It's a silent reminder that some lives carry weight, courage, and value that cannot be ignored. The outcome of that encounter was more than personal. It was symbolic, proof that recognition, even belated, can transform disrespect into reflection, mockery into learning, and disdain into admiration. As the sound of the shop doors closed behind me, I felt that day had left a mark not only on the boy or the customers, but on me as well. The experience reaffirmed something that life and war have always taught me. True strength lies in integrity, patience, and the ability to transform adverse situations into moments of quiet justice and profound recognition. And although I knew that ignorance and mockery would often arise again, that episode would remain a vivid reminder that courage, truth, and experience always find a way to prevail. As I walked the streets after leaving the store, each step felt heavier and at the same time more meaningful. The encounter hadn't been just about mockery or recognition. It had been a silent lesson in respect, value, and humanity. I realized that the world often judges superficially, measuring strength only by what it sees and not by what someone has carried within themselves. By the invisible battles, the losses, the weight of decisions that will never be understood by those who have never been in the same position. The boy, without fully realizing it, had become a symbol of something greater. Youthful ignorance confronted by the truth of experience. He laughed and mocked me, unaware that those medals, those scars, those memories were echoes of lives saved, of comrades lost, of courage no one else would understand. And when he realized, through the manager, that all of it had value, he experienced, however briefly, the impact of the indisputable truth. It's a reminder that sometimes the deepest education comes not from books or sermons, but from direct confrontations with the reality of those who lived, of those who felt the weight of life in every fiber of their being. The moral I carry from this encounter is clear and relentless. Respect and dignity are not automatically given. They must be recognized, and often, the only way to do so is through the truth, firmly and calmly exposed. True courage is not demonstrated only on battlefields or in moments of extreme danger. It also manifests itself when one maintains dignity in the face of ridicule, when one transforms humiliation into a lesson, contempt into understanding. Justice is often not physical or immediate, but emotional, symbolic, perceptible in the change in perceptions and attitudes that results from an honest confrontation with the truth. As I remembered my battles, I felt again the presence of those who did not return, the comrades who died facing the unknown, those who taught me about courage and sacrifice without ever receiving public recognition. Those who survived carry their memories as silent weapons and continuous lessons, because every experience teaches something that no one can take away or ridicule. And in that store, amidst seemingly trivial mockery, the truth of my past served as a bridge to convey a fragment of that lesson to someone who, until then, knew nothing of real sacrifice. Earned respect is not fleeting. It remains in memory and perception, shaping future attitudes. The boy learned, even if only briefly, that mockery does not destroy the value of a life marked by profound experiences. He saw that strength lies not only in physical appearance or arrogant laughter, but in the firmness of truth, in patience, and in the ability to remain true even when the world seems to disdain it. This is a reminder that each person carries a story, often invisible, that deserves to be acknowledged before superficial judgments or contempt. And as I walked back to the street, I felt that the story did not end there. It serves as a silent call to all who witness or are involved in similar situations. That courage, experience, and valor cannot be ignored, that emotional justice exists even when no one applauds, and that life offers us unexpected moments to teach profound lessons about humanity. The moral is simple yet powerful. Never underestimate someone based on their appearance, never ridicule experiences you don't understand, and always allow the truth to shine through, for it has the power to transform mockery into respect, disdain into admiration, and contempt into understanding. This is the final silent and enduring reflection. Life does not measure value by what is visible, but by what is lived, felt, and achieved. And even in the most trivial encounters, the weight of experience can teach, inspire, and change the perception of those who dare to disrespect without knowing the true story. The world may mock, ignorance may laugh, but courage and truth always find a way to prevail. And therein lies the essence of human dignity.